From the very moment Amara was born, the midwives gasped. Unlike other babies, her tiny head was covered in thick, jet-black hair that shimmered under the lantern light like flowing silk. Her mother, weak but smiling, thought it was a blessing, but the villagers whispered it was a curse. As Amara grew, so did her hair, so fast that every morning her mother would cut handfuls of it, only to wake the next day and find it had doubled in length. By the time Amara turned 5, her hair trailed behind her like a never-ending river, forcing her to drag it across the dusty village paths. Strangers stared, children mocked, and elders warned that such unnatural beauty came with a price. But what disturbed Amara the most was not the stares, it was the pain. Each night, she felt her scalp burning, as if invisible hands were pulling the strands from the roots, feeding off her suffering. Yet no matter how many times it was cut, shaved, or burned, her hair always grew back stronger, longer, and wilder, wrapping around her bed as though it had a mind of its own. She soon became known as the woman with endless hair, a mystery both feared and admired. At first, she believed she could find a cure. She visited herbalists, priests, and even strange wanderers who promised to free her. She bathed in rivers said to hold cleansing powers, rubbed her scalp with sacred oils, and prayed under the moon for release. But with every attempt, the hair only grew faster, stronger, and darker, as if mocking her desperation. Soon, it became impossible to live normally. Her hair snaked around her compound, wrapped around trees, and even trapped goats and chickens that got too close. People avoided her house, whispering that she carried the spirit of an ancient goddess. But loneliness was worse than the whispers. Amara felt like a prisoner of her own body. Then one morning, 2 mysterious strangers arrived in the village, a man and a woman dressed in flowing robes, their voices calm, their eyes filled with secrets. They claimed they had traveled across distant lands seeking her, and that they alone carried the cure. Amara's heart raced. Could this finally be her freedom? She agreed to follow them, desperate to be free of the curse that was consuming her life. At first, the strangers treated Amara with kindness, whispering sweet promises that her suffering would soon be over. They told her she must stay with them for 7 nights while they performed a sacred ritual to cut off her curse from its root. On the first night, they braided her hair into long ropes and tied it around ancient stones, saying it was part of the cleansing. On the 3rd night, Amara realized something strange, her strength was fading. Each time they chanted, her body weakened, while her hair thickened, longer and darker than ever. Her scalp burned as if fire lived beneath her skin. That was when she discovered the horrifying truth: the strangers were not healers, they were harvesters. They were draining her life through her hair, feeding on its power, and selling strands of it as charms to secret buyers. Amara screamed and begged them to stop, but the more she resisted, the tighter her hair coiled around her like living chains. She had walked into a trap. Her curse had become their weapon, and she was nothing but a prisoner bound by her own strands. But fate has a way of turning chains into swords. On the 7th night, when Amara was at her weakest, the strangers tried to complete their ritual. They bound her hair to a wooden staff and raised it toward the moon, chanting louder than ever. But something inside Amara snapped. For the first time, instead of fighting her hair, she embraced it. She willed it to rise, to strike, to protect her. To her shock, it obeyed. Her endless strands whipped through the air like angry serpents, wrapping around the man and woman, pulling them to the ground. They screamed as the hair tightened, crushing them in its coils. Amara's tears fell, but they were no longer tears of despair, they were tears of power. The curse that once tormented her had chosen her as its master. In one final surge, her hair devoured the strangers, swallowing their screams into silence. Amara collapsed, exhausted, but free. From that night, Amara was no longer a victim. Her hair stopped growing wildly, flowing instead with controlled grace, like a crown of living silk that bent to her will. She learned to weave it into shields, ropes, and even weapons, defending herself and others. The villagers who once mocked her now bowed when she passed, whispering that she was chosen by the gods. Her story spread across kingdoms, not of a woman cursed, but of a woman who turned her curse into her crown. And whenever the wind blew through the village, making her strands dance like shadows, Amara smiled. She had discovered the truth: sometimes, the thing that tries to destroy you is the very thing that saves you.